Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew, and I'm a founder and the executive director of Boarding X Kitchen. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about what this past year actually looked like for us, what we cooked, what we managed to do, what we learned along the way. We survived 2025, and sometimes just surviving is itself a success. And in fact, I just filed our biennial report with the state, so on paper, we still get to exist for another year. What we did hit was a big milestone in the amount of meals we were able to make and serve, and I want to show you in one of our recent blog posts. Our total meal count since we began is now 2,248, which, yeah, bothers me. We were so close to just 250 being such a nice round number. But what it lets us do is we're not exaggerating when we can finally say we have fed thousands of people. Barely two increments of 1,000, but we've finally crossed into the thousands threshold, which is exciting because that's always been one of our goals. And our specific number for 2025 is 1,457 meals. And that's meals that doesn't count things like cakes, cookies, breads, any of the standalone kind of side dishes. That's only fully prepared meals. And I find it humbling that our small group was able to do this and just make it as far as we have. We were only able to do this through a partnership with a local right to food center that operates a version of the Everyone Eats program. Our group on the second week of every month does what shopping we can from the food shelf. Then we supplement what we can and turn that into prepared and ready to eat packaged meals that get distributed the following week through the food shelf. And in the picture, we have a few examples of that. So that means our menus are going to vary by just simply what's available. In some months, turn into a cooking challenge. There was one point last year we were completely overrun with peach cups. And if you look at our collage over here, you can see some of those made it into this picture down here. That became a peach compote that was served on these gluten-free pancakes. And honestly, I get so excited every time I look at this picture because I find this the perfect golden brown that just so uniformly cooked over that pancake. If you get a chance, cook pancakes on a griddle. This was our first summer using a Blackstone, and I just absolutely blown away by how great the pancakes came out. I can't get them that uniform in a pan, but that was where some of our peach cups went. And sometimes we just get a random mix of meat cuts. There was a grocery store that had one of their coolers die, and I was able to get my hands on a single beef tenderloin, and I was able to cut that into medallions, and it got served with an onion gravy and cheddar mashed potatoes with garlic. And I hate it gets grainy blowing these pictures up here, but those are garlic cheddar mashed potatoes with onion gravy, and those medallions came out beautiful. Those went to the food shelf. I didn't eat those. I wish I could have eaten those, but those are some of the meals that we were able to distribute throughout the year, and those are two of the meals in particular that I was the most excited with how they came out, and I got to personally cook those ones. I don't get pictures of everything that I cooked, and I am not the only cook. I'm just one of several. But if I had to pick some honorable mentions, there was a there was a point in time where I got, not that I had to, I was privileged enough to be able to cook some fried chicken livers, beautiful buffalo macaroni and cheese made from overstock of chickpea buffalo flavored chickpea puffs, and ramen bowls with made from cognac or konjac noodles. I don't know how which way it goes, but that's just some of the things that I got to cook. And I'm by far not the only. I'm not even a good cook, but I'm not the only one that we have. If Lindsay was here talking to you, she would have to tell you about the absolute gallons of chili she has made over the last year. And we've gotten great reviews on Tiffany's chicken mac salad. So I'm not the only one, and I absolutely could not have done all this without everybody's help. And I can't forget to mention Alicia, and we have some younger helpers, Natalie, Lorelei, and Valerie, who they've handed us a lot of produce off the loading dock, but they're kids. They're our child labor. They don't get a say in what we do. But that's our group. That's how we get most of our ingredients and how we're able to distribute the meals that we do make. And 2025 was a hectic year, and that came with some trade offs. One of our partners went through a leadership change, and we at one point were examining a fiscal sponsorship or a pass through relationship. And we've decided that for 2026, we're actually going to see what we can do to approach 501c3 status on our own. And until then, we're just a state level nonprofit. And although I find it humbling and almost uncomfortable at the generosity of others, but I have had to turn down donations and sponsorships because we just haven't quite figured out how taxes work at that level yet. We're hoping to get there, but we're just not at this exact moment. But before I get rambling again, what I mean to say is we spent more of our efforts on the community impact activities. And that means we wrote fewer blogs, we made less YouTube videos, but we helped keep our community fed. And I would like to think that that is the important part out of those two. We prioritized feeding people over documenting everything. And I mean, I'm still comfortable with that choice. But we're hoping to get more of both done in the upcoming year. Now, another takeaway that we had from this is when we first started, this monthly cooking was intended just to be an excuse for regular and consistent food content production. So, recipes, pictures, YouTube videos. That was great in theory, but what I didn't take into account was how much cooking at scale changes things. So, it's one thing to make a batch of chili for dinner where I'm going to feed a family of 4 to 6 once, maybe have some leftovers. That's one thing. I can get that done with a crock pot. But when I'm making the same chili for 50 people, it changes things. And cooking a single dinner is much more cinematic than cooking 50 dinners. But that being said, in 2026, we do intend to put more focus on our content to community loop. Because someday we have a goal where community support and funding doesn't look like soliciting donations. Instead, it's just watching our videos, interacting with our content. That way, we're not asking anyone to give us any money. Just a few minutes of their time, watch our content, give us a like and a subscribe so we can feed more people. But we're not asking for anyone to give us actual money. That's hard enough to come by. One of our goals is to work on the website, build up enough traffic to our cooking blog that we could apply for Google AdSense, and then focus more on our YouTube channel and video content to maybe someday monetize that as well. And we'll see just how far we actually get into all that. But what I do want to say is that I'm proud of what we managed to do this year, and not because it was huge, but because it was real. It feels like just enough to build on. We've learned a lot of lessons. We know what direction we want to head in. And maybe someday I'll be making these videos from our soup kitchen. Maybe someday I'll be making these videos from our soup kitchen surrounded by Michelin stars and James Beard Awards. But for right now, we're focusing on still being able to feed our community and still being able to grow and trying to develop this content loop for funding so that we're not competing with any of the other nonprofits for the limited resources that are out there. We're hoping to be able to self-generate all of this in a way that doesn't require us to ask anything but a time commitment and some content interactions from our viewers, and that we can use that as a means to feed our community. And that is what we're hoping to get closer to achieving in 2026. And this is how much more progress we made towards that from 2025. So if you're still listening at this point, I just wanted to say thank you.